I might get in trouble for this video.
Only because I want to challenge the 5 controversial topics
that normally persuade the average golfer to upgrade their irons. But it's only because of spending years looking through my clients' golf bags and seeing the same costly mistakes over and over again.
I do feel some of you might benefit from hearing what I've got to say.
Now, before we get into all of that, and some of you are getting your pitchforks ready, this game for the majority of us is a hobby. And if you want to treat yourself to a brand new set of irons, then I'm all for it. However, spending a lot of money on this game does also mean a raise in expectations.
For example, the expectation that you're going to hit it further, the expectation that you're going to hit better shots, the expectation you're going to hit better bad shots, because you have a new piece of equipment in the bag. And sadly, too often I see people either quit the game or just not enjoy it anymore because, well, those expectations
aren't necessarily getting met. So quite simply, I want to share with you my 5 controversial reasons why I don't think a new set of irons in 2024 is going to help certain golfers, but also share who it would help, whether it's quite old, affordable, or relatively newer. Because our job as a golf coach, club fitter, anyone in the industry really, just wants you to enjoy the game more, because that's the whole reason we're playing it. Now, spoiler alert, number 5 is all about technology, where I want to test 3 different generations of ping irons. And to be honest, the results absolutely shocked me. However, as we get into our first reason, you'll notice how all of these categories link into each other quite neatly. Let's start off with a good one, shall we? Inconsistent strikes. And I know what you're thinking, Simon, that's the whole point of a club fit or even newer irons, more forgiving irons, to help with that bad shot, to help with that off-center strike.
Now, before we go any further and I explain myself, if this is your hand-me-down iron or it looks around this age or even potentially head type, yes, getting something newer and slightly more forgiving
is certainly going to help.
The person that I am addressing is this type of golfer that has a relatively new iron head, pretty forgiving, pretty chunky, offset, de-lofted, and unlike the dispersion circle that I did there with essentially 4 different kinds of heads, has something a bit more like this. This is more what I'm talking about when it comes to inconsistency of strike or even bad shot.
And to be fair, this would definitely be more of the beginner category, but we've all fallen out of love with our irons and gone through that inconsistency stage, especially at one point, potentially your new club fitted irons were working so well.
And it's easy to blame the clubs.
But I talk about that expectation earlier, and if you spend more money on a brand new set and you still get a lot of that, well, it's not going to be that enjoyable, is it?
Now, any good club fitter that saw those blue dots on the screen should have said, don't worry, go away, practice lessons, come back and we'll do another fitting. And if you are that beginner golfer with these hand-me-downs and you want something slightly more forgiving and going to help you, just get a second-hand set of these because they are rather reasonable.
However, I do want to show you a dispersion pattern where it would be beneficial for you to be club fitted.
Now, by no means am I saying you're going to have to be that consistent in the bad shot. However, as you can see, predominantly all left because, well, I've got a light graphite shaft. Not to mention the head's incredibly offset, so a less offset head is going to help that golfer. The lie angle you could make flatter, again, to bring this in. And lastly, it's too de-lofted. No one needs to hit their 7-iron 200 yards, which conveniently brings us into controversial reason number 2, distance.
One of the most sought after properties in technology, irons, everything in golf is distance.
So let me simply explain why distance is a bad thing, but then also a good thing for certain golfers. Because too many of us celebrate how far their 7-iron can actually go. 224 yards.
Now I get it, and the reason that I put this as controversial is, of course, we all feel more confident with a 9 iron, a pitching wedge, an 8 iron from 140, 150 out than we do, let's say, a more true lofted 6 iron. However, the more distance we have in this game, the less control. It's the same reason the driver goes the furthest in our game, but let's be honest, our bad shots are worse with it. And apart from the thin and fat shot, it's very difficult to hit a wedge a serious amount of line because, well, it spins so much. And here's where it gets challenging, because I'm talking about that golfer that can swing quite fast. And at the end of this segment, I'll talk about why these irons on the right are so good. But because you're relatively new, and to be honest, you do swing fast because you're athletic, you kind of need the forgiveness of this. But let's be honest, whether you've got a set of these now or thinking about getting a set, you'll be great from pitching wedge to 7 iron, but then have a massive gap to your next wedge in the bag, as well as you will get punished on the good shot. Slightly downwind, slightly out the rough. You catch this thing out the middle. See you later. My point on this quick test is that if you do go for a club fit and you are thinking about new irons, don't just take distance as the only litmus test. Because for you faster players that are getting better, having lessons, the good shots will become a lot more frequent, and carrying your 7 iron 208 isn't really controllable. Now, of course, I'm not recommending this for that player because that's a step too far, but I do want to explain how every manufacturer makes loads of different heads with a bit more loft or a bit more forgiveness, and these two clubs are very much on opposite ends of the spectrum. But as you can see there, 5,000 worth of backspin, hence why it's gone so far. And with similar ball speed and launch angle, notice the increase in backspin. I actually launched it lower, again playing that more penetrating flight. Notice the descent angle is virtually the same, even though I launched it lower. And for a faster player, you don't want it up in the air for ages. You don't want it really high apex. Look at the peak on that, 50 yards versus 43. The wind's not going to touch it as much. Quicker stopping power, 10 yards versus 13 yards. And if I'd hit this out the rough, of course the spin's going to drop on both, but then that gets dangerously low, i.e. nosediving out the air, or if sailing the wind, massively out the back. But that's what I mean in terms of control. This helps you on the bad shots. This helps you on the good ones. This punishes you on the bad shots, and this helps you on the bad shots. All I want to do is stop that 20 to 35-year-old golfer fully addicted to the game that can launch his iron 160 yards and then wants to get a cavity back iron that goes 180 or 185. However, for that golfer that's getting slower, can't see any possible new speed in the future, hits the ball way too high, launch angle very high, because they scoop and flip to release that head so it doesn't flail out to the right. These irons are great. Launch angle for a 7 iron verging on a touch too high, however it's heavily de-lofted. Spin rate we don't mind, realistically at 80 miles an hour, 168, 180 carry. And again, because that person's flipping and releasing too early, they're going to hit the ground a lot behind the ball. They're going to hit up through the golf ball a lot. So the thicker sole's going to help that golfer. Versus the blade, 79.9, same club head speed. You can see the efficiency. I didn't catch it well, and you're not going to catch it well with that kind of technique, meaning 133 carry, 145. And at that club head speed, I know which club head I'd probably lean more towards. Number 3, shafts. This definitely could annoy a few people watching this video. Now, this segment isn't about the golfer that started 2 years ago and has like package set Uniflex shafts throughout his bag. Also isn't about that senior golfer that would benefit from a graphite shaft going forward because he's lost quite a bit of club head speed. This segment, however, is about that golfer that's searching for that miracle end of the rainbow shaft that's going to solve all their problems, and they keep changing clubs or even just shafts from a 10-gram change, a slightly higher trajectory shaft, slightly more torque in this one versus that one, where's the swing weight? And ultimately, unless you're a very low single-figure handicapper that's dialed in with their irons, knows exactly what they're after, I do feel like it's just feeding a bit of a placebo.
rather than looking at your technique. That right there was an XP100 S300 mid-trajectory shaft. Now we're going to go to a light 85 gram high trajectory shaft. I'm glad I hit both of those relatively similar. They have finished exactly on top of each other. I think out of nerves I swung faster because I was trying to hit a good one. Hence the added ball speed, and you could also add a tiny bit more launch. But I'm not saying the shafts aren't different, they make it different. Otherwise I wouldn't club fit people for secondhand clubs. But my point is this, we're not robots, and one of these shafts would be great for you on a Monday and the other shaft might be great for you on a Wednesday. I've always had the thought of taking an average mid-handicap golfer and go to 5 different custom fitting centers, one on a Monday, one on a Tuesday, one on a Wednesday, etc. at different times, and I almost guarantee you that golfer will come out with 5 different clubs, all similar builds, hopefully same head design, hopefully similar shaft profiles, but they're not going to be exactly the same. Feel and looks. Right, let's upset the purists, shall we? To be fair, when it comes to technology, this is the one category I think we can all wholeheartedly agree every manufacturer has got better over the last 10 to 15 years. Now, I appreciate these aren't the same head type, but let's be honest, which one would you rather have in the bag? And as I said at the start of this video, this game is a hobby. Play with what you want. If you like the look and feel of this, then by all means, play with it. However, please be aware for that one shot out of 20 that you absolutely flush and you love the feel and the sound of, you are sacrificing a lot of forgiveness when it comes to then the bad shots. It's why these have dominated the market for the last 8 years, because it has that kind of look and feel, and they put a forged face on it as well as putting that speed foam in there, and overall, in terms of feel and sound, it's a great compromise. However, my point is the law of physics still apply, and no matter how much research, R&D, whatever, when it comes to a single forged head, there is only so much that they can do in the forgiveness department. And this isn't to stop that purist playing his blades. However, just don't buy a new one, because the 5, 6, 7, 8, 10-year-old blades in good condition are exactly the same as the ones that are coming out, because they're not magicians and they can't conjure up wizardry. Okay, it's test time. Technology. Oversized ping at the bottom here. 1999 that was released, and as far as I can tell, that was the most forgiving offering from Ping until 2003 when they brought the G2 out. G30, about 10 years old now, and then obviously G425. I'll leave the prices that these are all on eBay at the moment, so you can obviously hazard a guess, but let me hit some and show you the results. The G30 and the G425 will have the same shaft. Obviously, this is just a standard stiff flex that came in the O size. There is nothing wrong with that. Wait till I start talking to you about lofts as well. There's no question this thing feels lighter. There's definitely a pattern starting to form, and to be honest, this really reiterates what I said earlier. Right, the middleman, the G30. Very good price, as I'll show you here on the right-hand side. Let's see where it sits, and then talk a bit about lofts as well. I'm always going to hit the good value one the best, aren't I? See these jump outs here? This is what I was talking about earlier, being in the rough, downwind, or you hit it tiny bit heavy. It drops the spin, but keeps the launch, hence straight out the back. The G30, however, I didn't get one of these. It's not to say that this wouldn't happen on the golf course though. But in terms of the good shots with the G425 and the G30, considering both of them only half a degree in between themselves. This is lofted at 30 degrees. This is lofted at 30.5. This 34.5. So no wonder my launch was higher. My spin was higher compared to the other two. But the bit that was most interesting is how similar I swung all 3 clubs. This is probably as close as I can ever get it. On average, 99.6 with the G30, 99.6 with the G425, 98.7, a mile an hour slower, and I did think it did feel heavier, but a mile an hour over 100 is well negligible. Slightly down, slightly down-ish, into out, into out, into out. Again, for me, if I had to play one of the cores, it'd either be the G30 or realistically the Ping, because it gave me so much more spin, just make it a bit more upright so I don't link them out to the right-hand side. But for the average golfer, technology-wise, in terms of forgiveness, feel, sound, lightness, there's a stark contrast between the i3 and the G30, and negligible between the G30 and the G425. However, after listening to this video, you feel you will benefit from a club fit, then go and pay for a club fit in. Get some experience. Don't be pressured to buy them on the day, and see if there is going to be a difference between your older set and then obviously the one that you've just been fitted into. If you've got any questions, sasgolfacademy.com. Catch you guys later.